Hello and welcome to this AS Business Studies revision webinar with myself, Graham Pryor from Tutor to You, and the topic we're going to be looking at in this short webinar is variance analysis. So three key areas we're just going to touch on is we're going to look at what is a variance, positive and favourable variances, and calculating variances. So quite simply, a variance occurs when there is a difference between actual figures and the figures that were set in a budget. Variances can either be favourable or adverse. A favourable variance occurs when the actual figure is better than expected when compared to the budget. For example, if the profit was higher than expected or the costs were lower than expected, we would class that as a favourable variance. An adverse variance occurs when the actual figure is worse than expected when compared to the budget. So if the profit was lower than expected or costs were higher than expected, that would be classed as an adverse variance. So we're just going to look at calculating variances, and I thought I'd start off with a very simple example before we move on to something a bit more realistic or something you're more likely to get in an exam. So I've just got a very short case here, very short. In 2013, Jason set up a small fast food business operating from a van in Durham city centre, specialising in doner and chicken kebabs, burger and chips. Jason set a profit budget for his business, Jason Donovan, of $33,500. His actual profit was $29,200. And the question is, calculate the profit variance for 2013 and state whether it was adverse or favourable. Very straightforward. The budget was $33,500. His actual was $29,200. The difference being $4,300. And because it was less than expected, it's an adverse variance. Now, one of the best pieces of exam advice I can give, and it applies to every single exam, is answer the question. The question says, calculate the profit variance for 2013, which has been calculated, and state whether it was adverse or favourable. If you forget to write adverse or favourable, or A or F will suffice, and then potentially you can drop a mark. So always answer the question. So we've calculated the variance which was asked for, and we've stated whether it was adverse or favourable, so we've answered the question. So moving on to a more complicated example, which is something that you're more likely to get in an exam. And so here we've got some budget and actual sales from a small rural supermarket. And I used this example in our recent exam coaching workshops. So let's just have a look at the information. So we've got income and expenditure, two periods. We've got January to March, and we've got April to June. At the top here, we've got budgeted figures, and here we've got the actual for that period. And between April and June, we've got the budgeted figures, and we've got the actual. And the question states, calculate the profit variance for January to June 2014, and state whether it was adverse or favourable. Now, this is slightly more complicated example because you have to work out the profit first and foremost. But not only do you have to work out the profit, you have to work out two profit figures. You have to work out the budgeted profit, what the business thought it was going to make. Then you have to work out the actual profit, what the business actually made. And only when you do that can you work out the variance and then make a decision whether it was adverse or favourable. So before we look at the calculation, I'll just quickly talk you through on the slide how you would work it out. So here we need to work out firstly what the budgeted profit was between January and June. There's a number of ways you can work it out. This is how I would teach it to my students. So firstly, we need to work out what the budgeted profit was. So to do that, we work out what the budgeted profit was between January and March. So there's our total income figure, $324,000. That's our total expenditure. The difference between the two will be our budgeted profit for the period January to March. Then moving up to April and June, we find out what the budgeted profit for that period is, which is $384,900. We take off our total expenditure, $258,000, and that will give us our budgeted profit between April and June. Those two figures added together will be our budgeted profit for the period January to June 2014. That's the first part of the calculation. Then we need to work out what the actual profit was. So here we've got total income of $349,200. We take off the expenditure of 224,000. That gives us our actual profit for that period. We do the same here between April and June 2014. So we've got total income of 415,200. We take off the 291,000, which will give us our actual profit for that period. We add those two figures together, which gives us our actual profit between January and June. Once we've got those figures, we can then work out what the variance was and then decide whether it was adverse or favorable. So on the next slide here, I've got the full working out so you can follow it in your own time. So I've restated the question there. So here we've got the budgeted profit for January to March, which was 119,000. We've then got the budgeted profit for April to June, which was 126,900. The two added together gives us a total profit budget of 245,900. I've done exactly the same for the actual profit made, and that gives us a total actual profit of 249,400. The difference between the two was 3,500, and because the supermarket made more profit than expected, it's a favourable variance. So there we've got the 3,500. We've stated whether it's favourable, and that will allow us to secure the full marks. So that concludes that short revision webinar on variance analysis. For more help and support, that we've got plenty of other videos on key topics on our YouTube channel. Great source of help is Twitter. You can follow myself, tutor2u_Graham on there. You can also follow Jim Riley at tutor2u. Hope you found that useful, and thank you for listening.